Yo, what is going on, you guys? It is your boy Sooplex or Sooplex. I know some of you like the long grade, like Sooplex, which I like. I think it's really cool. But it is your boy Tyler Sooplex. I am here with my good friend, good buddy Liam Crowley.
What's going on, everyone? So excited to be back, and we got a lot to talk about this week, Tyler.
Hell yeah, we're here with the second episode of the Sooperplex Podcast. I am so excited. This is the second edition, the second week that we are doing this podcast. Week 2 of many weeks going forward. I know some of you wondering, is this going to be like an actual thing? Like, yes, it is an actual thing. I know sometimes I say, yeah, we're doing it. And then it's like, oh yeah, we did like one episode and that's that. But no, we're in it for the long haul, buddy. There was a lot that happened in wrestling in the last week on Raw, on Smackdown, on AEW. A lot of stuff that's confirmed for next week for AEW and WWE. The PWI 500 dropped. I know this is an annual thing. A lot of wrestling fans like to talk about and lose their mind on Twitter about. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, but there is a lot of importance, especially to the wrestlers themselves being on the list. It's like a sense of prominence you get being number 100, being number, God forsake you, number 1. Obviously, if you're like an independent wrestler, it's just great to even be on a list in some way. But just seeing who they are and where these journalists and, you know, top names in the industry see 500 wrestlers, because that, when you really think about it, it's really hard to name 500 wrestlers. Like, I don't even know 500 people in my life, let alone to sit down and rank 500 people. Like, I was struggling to rank 25 people on my list. So I only can imagine having to do with 500 people. So I do not envy having to be the person to put this list together, rank it, but I admire it a lot. That being said, we will also be doing our own PWI, not 500. That we're around doing 500. I just said I can't name 500. I'm not doing 500, but we are doing 25. I did my own SWI 25. Liam did his own LWI 25. We'll be doing that towards the end of the podcast. But let's get into things, starting off with the very beginning of our week. Monday Night Raw. Liam, did you catch Raw? What did you think about the show overall?
I did, and Raw was hot this week. I loved that we got Bret Hart back to kind of add a little bit more flavor to the Gunther and Sami Zayn feud. I really like the ending of the Intercontinental #1 Contenders Tournament. Again, championships, mid-card championships especially, feel bigger when it feels like the contenders they're about to face earned their spots. So I love that we were able to flesh out that entire field with a little bit of a mini tournament. And then obviously the big news of Punk and Drew being locked inside Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood, that getting confirmed was awesome. And so, yeah, Raw was kind of, I want to say, a standard show as we get closer to Bad Blood, but at the same time, it continued to be in and around the gold standard that Triple H has set recently with weekly TV, that it is actually considered must-watch TV, not necessarily stuff that you can just catch up on the next day. And sure, we're all guilty of doing it every once in a while, but yeah, this is a lot of the segments that were happening. I was like, I'm glad I'm watching this live. And Sooplex, or Tyler. Sometimes I call you Sooplex, sometimes I call you Tyler. Tyler Sooplex.
It does not matter. Either one works.
One of these days, we'll like the T-bone suplex is something, right?
Yeah, that's a move? Shelton Benjamin's finisher.
Okay, we'll find a way to get a T-suplex in there. But I want to start with Gunther and Sami Zayn. Because we had this face-off with Bret Hart in the middle of it. Gunther kind of running down Bret Hart and making that sly little Goldberg joke. And eventually Sami Zayn came out, you know, once again challenging Gunther, saying, you know, I'm the only one to beat you on the main roster. There's a reason why I should be challenging for the world title. I thought the logic in this story is fantastic. Question I want to pose to you, though, Tyler. Sami and Gunther only just happened like 5 months ago at WrestleMania. And we've had times before where mid-card feuds graduate to a world title, but it takes a couple years. Rock and Austin feuded over the Intercontinental title, and then some time passed before they met again in the world title scene. So I want to flip it to you now. Do you think Sami versus Gunther for a world championship is happening too soon?
Okay, here's the thing. So, as some people who maybe listen to this podcast know, I have not been the biggest Sami Zayn fan this year. Nothing against Sami Zayn as a wrestler, nothing against him as a person. This is all personal bias. See, Sami Zayn has had a track record this year of just beating people who I'm a fan of. Earlier this year, he faced Gunther WrestleMania. I thought it should have been Chad Gable. I'll be honest with you. I thought they had a long-running story. It made the most sense. He lost his opportunity to Chad Gable. Chad Gable became his, training partner or whatever. I'm like, this feels kind of forced to me, but okay, I'll bite. Go to WrestleMania, Sami Zayn wins. Now, was I mad that Gunther lost? Not really. I'm like, he was kind of due to lose it because at some point this year, I had in my brain, Gunther is going to be World Heavyweight Champion, and I don't think he's going to do that while being IC Champion, so he has to lose that championship at some point. This is the point. WrestleMania is the grandest stage. It makes the most sense to happen here. Did I want it to be the Sami Zayn? No, I didn't. The match was great. I won't dispute that, but I'm like, oh, okay, Sami Zayn won. All right, I'll just bitch and moan, but he'll get the World Heavyweight title soon after. Then Sami Zayn went on to have 2 more matches with Chad Gable, and he won both of those matches, which really was like, okay. They had a triple threat match with Sami and Bronson Reed. Was I begging Bronson Reed to win? No, but then Sami Zayn won that match too, was it? All right. So then we get the Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker. Not the second match, the first match. They had their match in Money in the Bank, and I said, okay, Braun Breaker is on fire. He's mowing through people. He's one of the fastest rising guys on the roster. He should be beating Sami Zayn in the first match. Am I asking for a squash match? No. Should it be? Yes. I'm not asking for one, though, because that's not realistic. We go to the Money in the Bank. Sami Zayn beats him with one haluva kick. I know people are losing their minds on Twitter about that. Shamefully, I may have been one of those people. But the point was, Sami Zayn should have lost to Braun Breaker in the first match. I was a little bit mad about that. So when we got to SummerSlam, by that point, I was frustrated and fed up with Sami Zayn. I said, you know what? I hope he loses. And people were up my ass like, oh, but Sami Zayn's such a good wrestler, this and that. Listen, as a fan, I know I have to come to you guys as the influencer and the content creator. As a fan, I am allowed to dislike wrestlers if they're beating people that I like. So Sami Zayn was on my shit list this year, okay? And going into this match, it's a rematch against Gunther. I still am a fan of Gunther. Sami Zayn, he's not completely on the shit list still. But he's creeping on there again by having this rematch against Gunther. Here's what I'll say. If I'm putting the bias aside, do I think it's too soon? I'm going to say no. Gunther is at a point right now where he's still very early into his reign. I believe he won the title, May? No. He won the King of the Ring.
He won the title.
He won the title in
His
August.
reign is fresh.
He's very fresh into his reign. And coming off of WrestleMania, which was 5 months ago, when he lost to Sami Zayn, one could argue that he's due back for a win. So I would say no. I mean, Sami Zayn doesn't really have much of a shot at beating him, considering that Gunther has been a champion in WWE twice, and each reign has been over a year. I mean, his first reign was literally 3 years, and then his second reign was a year and a half. So no one is honestly believing that no matter who you put against Gunther, they're going to beat him within the first 2 months of his reign. So no, don't do that. Don't do that. Cena, first of all, we'll talk about that in a second. But as I was saying, before Liam threw me off, I don't think anybody buys Gunther losing his title anytime in the near future. Now, I saw Liam do a little, you can't see me there. And there's been a lot of talk about John Cena going for title number 17. Now, Liam, I'll pose this question before I give you my thoughts. You did that little sign there. Are you leaning towards John Cena and Gunther having a match for the title? Or are you leaning towards them having a match for the title and John Cena beats Gunther for the title?
I'm technically leaning towards neither, only because I want Cena versus Cody at WrestleMania. I think that's the biggest match you can do, and I think that is the way of doing the modern day Generations Collide, Rock versus Cena, but now Cena in the Rock role and Cody in the Cena role. I think that's the biggest match you can do, and also a cool way for Cena to possibly get 17 and maybe turn heel in the process. I don't know. Like, I want Cena to tell stories when he gets back. I don't want him to just play the greatest hits and just be the big match John that we know and love. I'd love for him to do a little bit of character work. You know, The Rock is the final boss in this return, and it's the best work he's done since I've ever watched him wrestle live. So I'd love for Cena to do a little bit of character work. On the flip side, though, I think it's a lot more realistic that Cena and Gunther is the title match that happens at WrestleMania. And considering WWE is most definitely going to make John Cena a 17-time champion at some point next year, I think Gunther being the dominant champion going in and Cena getting that one last feel-good WrestleMania victory, I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's hard for me, like you just said, Tyler, you don't like wrestlers who beat wrestlers you like. Well, I love John Cena, okay? I grew up on Big Match John. I was playing the trumpets, do. I want to see Big Match John get a win at WrestleMania. That would make my heart feel happy. So I'm not necessarily rooting for Cena versus Gunther, because again, I want Cena versus Cody, but I am rooting for a Cena world title match at Mania next year.
You know, it's been a while since I chanted John Cena sucks. John Cena sucks.
You don't mean that.
No,
you don't mean that. You're gonna miss him so much. You're gonna miss him so much when he's on.
I'm bullshitting. I don't mean it. But feeding off of you a little bit, I can see the want for a John Cena Gunther match, and I'm not against the John Cena Gunther match in the slightest. I do want to see that match happen. Do I want to see John Cena beat Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship? I don't really think we need it. I think if you're putting a 17th world title on John Cena, it should be the Undisputed Championship. I honestly don't want number 17 to be the World Heavyweight Championship, the secondary title. I'm sorry. After Roman Reigns called it, you know, the what did he refer to Seth Rollins as? The bracket champion or something. After he referred to it as like the loser bracket
participation trophy.
The participation trophy. Yeah. It will forever be the loser bracket participation trophy. So if John Cena is going after 17, it's got to be the Undisputed Championship. It can't be any other title. And I'm sorry that Gunther's holding that title. He's going to bring some prestige to it. Not that it didn't have prestige before it, but bring some more value to it being a long reigning champion. And I don't think we get that if he loses to John Cena at WrestleMania. I'm sorry. I don't think we get that. I mean, yeah, it'll be a nice pop and a nice hoorah, and then John Cena will drop it to whoever, like a couple months after the fact, because we all know John Cena ain't holding on to that title longer than 3 months, because he's going to be retiring in December. So, I don't know. But back to the main question, is Sami Zayn versus Gunther too soon? I'm going to say no, because again, long term, Gunther will be holding on to that title for a long while, at least a year. And we're 1 month in. There's no shot he's losing it to Sami. I think Sami Zayn being a championship contender right now is fine. If they want to run back even a rematch a few months down the line, that's fine. Sami Zayn shouldn't be winning that either. So yeah, to answer your question, I think it's fine.
I respect it. And I personally would have held off on Sami until maybe the Rumble, just because I think Gunther's path right now is probably Gunther versus CM Punk around Survivor Series, if we expect CM Punk to emerge victorious in the Drew McIntyre feud, which honestly is a pretty good segue into Punk versus Drew. We'll get to Jey Uso in a second. I just want to talk about this while it's relevant to this conversation. It's confirmed that CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, their final, well, expectedly final, blow-off match in this, 3 pay-per-view feud is going to be Hell in a Cell stipulation at Bad Blood. I believe it's almost to the day of the anniversary of one of the more iconic Hell in a Cell matches. I forget exactly which one. I think it was Shawn and Taker. But Shawn and Taker. My question that I'll pose with this topic, and I think it's a fairly obvious one, but still I'd be interested to hear your rationale. Should this match, considering everything we also know about this week and some of the other matches we have confirmed from SmackDown, we can talk about what we're talking about with SmackDown here, just because it's relevant to this question. Should this match, that being Punk versus Drew Hell in a Cell, be the headlining match of Bad Blood?
Should it headline Bad Blood? Here's the thing. Before Friday, the answer would have been yes. After Friday,
don't say this. Don't say this.
The answer's an immediate no. I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. It's an immediate no. Well, there's no match There is no other match that you know for sure that WWE will put over Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes as the main event, brother. No. Come on. These three, you really think they're going to put Punk and Drew over Cody, Roman, Jacob, and Solo? Now, you're asking me, should it? And even if you're asking me, should it? I still don't even think that should be the main event after a humongous tag team match that we're getting to see. Cody and Roman Reigns have been feuding for 2 years. Now they're teaming up to take on Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu, who are now acting as rivals to what was the leader of the bloodline. I'm sorry, there's no way. And it sucks that Drew and Punk got put in a situation again where they're not the main event. That's kind of the thing about being on Raw, whereas SmackDown has the main champion. Unfortunate, but I don't see how that main event's over the tag team match. Unless you're going to convince me that the tag team match should open the show, I don't see how Punk and Drew overshadow or overgo Roman and Cody versus Solo and Jacob. I don't see it.
No, Tyler. No. I understand your rationale. If you're going to put yourself in the WWE booker's mind of like what they are probably going to put on last, would I bet on Punk and Drew headlining? I would not bet on it, but should it? Absolutely. This is the third match in a feud, and with all due respect to the Bloodline saga and everything, it's not the hottest story in WWE right now. The Bloodline saga has cooled off significantly, and a lot of that, and you made a TikTok about this or a YouTube short, I watched it, worried about Solo Sikoa. He's not good in this role. It's getting problematic. Jacob Fatu has helped elevate the story a little bit back to where it should be, but Solo is every single week sucking the life out of this angle, and it's frustrating me because I don't buy anything he does. Like, he talks a big game, but I understand his whole job beforehand was to make us miss Roman Reigns, and he succeeded at doing that. But now since Roman is back, I don't genuinely view Solo as a legitimate challenge to Roman. They feel like they're operating on two completely different playing fields. This is the first match, and honestly too, this seems like a bridge to get to the inevitable Bloodline Civil War Games match, and for that reason, it's okay for it to not close a pay-per-view. I remember hearing something about Roman in his contract has it that he will either open or close the show. He won't be a middle segment. I don't know if that also pertains to matches, because there have been times where the Royal Rumble has gone on last, of course, or I think that might be the only example during his championship reign. I can't think of another time, but yeah, I'm betting with my heart here, and Drew versus Punk has been the blood feud of the year, and I think there are circumstances where a non-title feud deserves to go on last. If the tag match had a championship attached, I would hear the argument. But because it is just a nothing tag match that is on paper going to unfold like a main event of Raw or SmackDown. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Tyler.
Nothing.
Oh my God, this is Rock and Cena versus Miz and R-Truth from Survivor Series 2011.
Whoa! Yes, I'm not
yes,
gonna let
it
you.
is.
Whoa! Easy on Jacob Fatu. Now, I know we don't like Solo Sikoa, but Jacob Fatu is on the same team now. Easy on Jacob now.
Tyler,
you got Jacob and Roman Reigns facing off for the very first time. It's not singles, but for the very first time, and you're gonna say, "Oh, it's a nothing tag team match."
Yes, because it's a television match happening on a pay-per-view. That's
How
exactly
is that a television match, bro? What are you talking about?
Because it's a nothing tag match. There's no championship attached. It's a random two singles pairing on a pay-per-view. This never used to happen.
Liam,
You
were at WrestleMania with me, bro. What are you talking about? Two randoms? It's Roman and Cody teaming for the first time. How are you going to say that's a nothing tag team?
And it happens on a TV show. Like these multi-man matches
you don't
that end up
put Roman and Cody on SmackDown. You're joking me. You don't put Roman and Cody on SmackDown.
Exactly. It's fine to go on a pay-per-view. It's not fine to headline a pay-per-view. It should not, this, just because Roman and Cody are teaming for the first time, that does not usurp them going over Drew and Punk, who have been feuding for 8 months, and 7 of those 8 months were happening while one of them was injured. Like, that is a magical storyline. Cody and Roman teaming, just because they used to be rivals, does not put them above one of the most well-built feuds of the modern generation. Like, and I say this because I get so frustrated by how many times the Bloodline has headlined premium live events just with like random tag matches. It was freaking Money in the Bank this year, rather than have Seth and Damian headline that pay-per-view and end with Drew screwing Drew McIntyre. End with Punk screwing Drew McIntyre, which should have been the closing angle. Instead, what did we get? We had Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu against Cody, Randy, and Kevin Owens in a 6-man tag. That is a TV match. I do not care what anyone says. That is a TV match. It's a really good TV match.
Roman Reigns and Cody. That's not a TV match. That is a WrestleMania, a 2-time WrestleMania main event, and you're saying that is a TV match?
I'm saying it's a really good TV match that warrants the bump to going on pay-per-view, but it does not warrant the pay-per-view main event slot. That's a prestigious position in modern WWE, even for the B shows.
Would you say that warrants the main event pay-per-view slot if CM Punk and Drew were not on that card? You thinking about this? You really thinking about this?
I genuinely am, and I'll tell you why. Because Gunther and Sami Zayn, if a world title match is on this pay-per-view, and the world title match,
you're drawing. You're not putting Drew and Gunther. You're not putting Gunther and Sami over the tag.
I don't care. I do not care who the champion and who the challenger is. It's the fact that that's a title match. And we for 3 years with Roman as champion, we had a lot of great singles feuds that had to operate with, oh, well, we're going to ride the pine because Roman is champion and Roman goes on last. And so if Cody is the champion and he's going to be in this tag match, then the title match should be the one that automatically goes in the main event slot. I'm just trying to operate with the Roman Reigns logic that we've used the past 4 years. And it's... Again, I get it. He's a big star. Cody's a big star. There's no denying that these are 2 of the biggest, if not the biggest stars in professional wrestling of the last 5 years. There's no denying the magnitude of the star power. But the match, like, that angle does not get hurt by not being in the main event slot. I think if we're going to weigh the pros and cons, the Punk versus Drew feud goes from being a really good, even great feud to an all-time feud just by getting the chance to headline a pay-per-view, because it hasn't the past 2 times. It did not headline Bash in Berlin. It wasn't even close to headlining SummerSlam. If Cody and Roman happen anywhere else on the card, no one is going to be like, oh man, they lost star power. Ah man, Cody and Roman don't feel the same anymore. It's okay. They will survive. My point is, Drew and Punk have a lot more to gain, way more than Cody and Roman have to lose.
Listen, I will meet you somewhere in the middle. I think that if CM Punk and Drew McIntyre were happening on this show and the tag team match was happening on a completely different pay-per-view, or by your logic on SmackDown, they just gave away this pay-per-view quality match on free TV and Drew and CM Punk were on Bad Blood by themselves, 100% it main events a show. Once you put in the fact that we only get Roman Reigns wrestling maybe 4 or 5 times a year, and this is one of those times, you don't not put him in the main event, especially when he's teaming with his rival, Cody Rhodes. I just don't see it. Listen, CM Punk, that's my GOAT. Drew McIntyre, he's on the best run of his career. Any other time, it should have been. I will go to bat for them. Should have been the main event at SummerSlam. I will go back for them there. Right here, right now, under these pretenses, no. I'm sorry, I couldn't constitute it. Now, I know they will get another match. This is probably not going to be the end of their feud. That will be the main event of the next show. If they want to drag it to WrestleMania, which I don't see how you do. If they want to drag it to WrestleMania, maybe main event WrestleMania 41. I don't know. But this just is not their main event spot. I don't think it is. Not under the tag team match that's on the show. And we will touch on the tag team match later.
You know who is the main event spot?
Who is the main event spot?
Main event Jey Uso. You like that for a segue, Tyler?
Yeah, I do like that for a segue. Unfortunately, I don't know how much longer we're going to be talking about this guy being main event Jey Uso for.
Real quick, Jey Uso won the Intercontinental #1 contenders title tournament, all that kind of stuff, whatever hodgepodge of words they put in to make it sound prestigious. But I don't want to joke about that because it did feel prestigious, and I like the way they unfolded this. He beat Braun Strowman, Ilya Dragunov, and Pete Dunne to officially become the #1 contender to Braun Breaker, the champion. Tyler, my question I'll ask you, and again, we'll keep this brief because we got a lot more wrestling to talk about. At what point does Jey start becoming damaged by being the resident challenger? And I'll bring up a couple examples. Last year, he obviously had the headlining SummerSlam match against Roman Reigns. That match shit the bed, to be honest. We were both there. It did not live up to the hype. And it felt big for Jey to be in that spot. No one really thought he was winning. Flash forward to this year, he gets the headlining chance once again. He wins a #1 contenders match to face Damian Priest for the World Heavyweight Championship. And based on that reaction he got in France, people were like, you should have called an audible and made Jey Uso world champion. And he lost that match. Now, here we go, same song and dance, challenging for his third different singles title on, I don't know if it's going to be a pay-per-view, but we'll call it third different singles title he's challenging for in the past year and a month, like a year and change. It's not looking good for him. It seems like Braun Breaker's going to run right through him. So, once again, after giving you all those examples, does Jey Uso, after this match, risk getting damaged by just being the resident challenger, always the bridesmaid, never the bride?
I think that Jey Uso, at this point in time, his character, from the standpoint of being a believable champion, is kind of already damaged because he's had so many opportunities and he's lost them all. In most cases, he lost these opportunities clean too. Jey Uso is a good singles wrestler. He is a very over wrestler on the roster, and that, in so many words, it is what is carrying him to the point where he's not damaged by the crowd. Because if the crowd was not hot, off their feet, doing the yeet, doing a little up and down motion when he came out, we would be having a whole different conversation about Jey Uso if he were not over. But the point is, he is very over. So the fact is, WWE knows they can kind of use and abuse this, sadly, so they can throw Jey Uso in whatever situation they want to. The crowd will get up and do the dance, and then once he loses, they'll pout, they'll piss, they'll moan, but they'll know they have Jey Uso next week to work off of. The crowd seems to not have smartened up to the fact that Jey Uso is being used in this role, the Dolph Ziggler role, I should say, where you have him, and you can use him as much as you want, but he's not your guy. He just is not. And WWE knows this. That's why they have not put the IC or the World Heavyweight Championship on this man. And we know for damn sure he wasn't winning the Undisputed last year. Let's be real about that. But he could have. He could have won the World Heavyweight Championship from Damian Priest earlier this year. He could have. Did he? No. I mean, think about it. If he had beat Damian Priest and he went down the same track record Damian Priest did, he would have had maybe a month with the title and then lost it to Gunther. Who was to say that Damian Priest needed to hold that title for an additional month before losing it to Gunther or, beating Drew McIntyre or whatever the case may be? He could have won it then, but he didn't. And even now, going up against Braun Breaker, he could be Braun Breaker. Now, I think that's going to be a short change to Braun Breaker's reign, but he could. But who is the guy they're really getting behind right now? It's Braun Breaker. Jey Uso is just a tool in the toolbox right now. Unfortunately, he is. Because WWE realizes there are other people that more than likely are going to be their top guys in the future. Jey Uso is not Roman Reigns. They already have someone that they're pushing right now. And Jey Uso is not fitting into the bloodline story because he's over enough by himself. And that's where it is right now. Jey Uso is becoming a bit where I've become a bit wary of where Jey Uso will stand in the future with the crowd because of how his booking is. But until the crowd seems to smarten up to it, I think he's okay. And like I said, I don't like the way they're using him. I don't really like the fact that he's always slotted into the role of being the contender, but never the champion. Maybe that changes somewhere down the line when Jey Uso comes back, and maybe they become a tag team again. And in some ways, I almost kind of hope it doesn't happen, because I think when Jey Uso comes back and they start teaming again, that's it for the singles run of Jey Uso. That's it. But hopefully not. What do you have to say about that, Leo?
I'm gonna invoke your wrestler you don't care for as reason why I'm okay with current Jey Uso booking, and that's Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was the most over wrestler in WWE just at the wrong time. He had all the momentum in the world at the end of the Bloodline saga, so much so that they had an Angle close a stadium pay-per-view. Like, Royal Rumble 2023 ending on Sami betraying Roman is still one of the coolest things to happen in recent wrestling history. And Sami Zayn was never going to win the WWE Championship at Elimination Chamber just because it wasn't the right time. They were going with the Cody and Roman direction, and they found a way to keep Sami Zayn hot without needing to shift their plans around. And on top of that too, Sami Zayn got his reward a year later. Sure, he still got a WrestleMania main event, and he was able to win the tag titles with Kevin Owens, but the real prize for him as a singles competitor came the following year at WrestleMania, where he was the one to beat Gunther, and he was the one to become Intercontinental Champion. Him getting over on his own naturally was eventually rewarded. That is the Triple H method. It is, listen, be patient. We don't necessarily have room for you in the card right now, but we will find room for you when it's appropriate. And that's what I think is happening with Jey Uso. When I wrote this question, I was very frustrated at first, being like, man, I really want him to win a singles title, but it just doesn't feel like the right time. Why are they constantly putting him in a position to lose and possibly lose his stock? Jey Uso is working his way back into the Bloodline saga. When Survivor Series comes around in just a little over 2 months, we are just 2 months away from Survivor Series, we know it is going to be Bloodline OGs versus Bloodline 2.0. Jey Uso will be on the side of Roman Reigns, probably with Jimmy Uso, probably with Sami Zayn as well, having that full OG Bloodline reunited against Solo Squad. And with that in mind, he can't be Intercontinental Champion when that is happening. That storyline revolves around the Bloodline. As Roman said on Smackdown, this is Bloodline business. This does not concern WWE. So let's keep the singles championships out of it. That being said, I really hope in maybe a little less than a year's time, Jey Uso getting over and being such a top merch seller. I was at Fanatics Fest a couple weeks ago in New York City. That little WWE entrance gimmick they have, where they set up the entrance stage and they let fans do the entrance. You know how many times, Tyler, I would just be on the floor and I would hear, "Ooh, so it's just me, oos," and this 7-year-old kid would come with his faux hawk and tie-dye blue hair in the back in full Jey Uso gear. This kid, Jey Uso literally is almost as over as John Cena was at the top of his heyday. So I think that needs to get rewarded eventually. It's just not in the cards right now. Maybe Jey Uso wins the IC title at WrestleMania 41. Maybe we save him for a world title at SummerSlam 2025. Either way, I trust Triple H to reward what Jey Uso is doing right now when the time is right. And with that being said,
reminds you of LA Knight 2023 at all, where the guy is super over, and not a case where they waited too late, because obviously him winning the title from Logan Paul at SummerSlam was still a sweet moment, but it's something they could have capitalized on sooner.
Well, I think that just adds to more of what I'm saying. LA Knight was the same circumstance. He got over at the wrong time. It just wasn't in the cards, and they eventually rewarded him a year later. So I think Jey Uso is just going to fall into line with that. Sure, you could have crowned LA Knight a little bit sooner, but hey, he's still as over as can be. So I really think you can't make an argument for saying they should have crowned him sooner, because if they crowned him sooner, what if he got stale?
Yeah. I mean, you also push the danger of him getting stale by waiting too long, which is always that question you have when you're doing something with Jey Uso, where he's getting all these title shots but never winning. Now, like you implied, him going back into the Bloodline could definitely sustain the momentum that he has, but
especially if he gets involved in the pin in the multi-man match at Survivor Series. If somehow, and I love when they do that, when Dolph Ziggler beat the Authority, not John Cena, at Survivor Series that year, or in AEW, it happens all the time in Anarchy in the Arena matches. Sammy Guevara I believe, was the one who pinned Sean Spears to win Stadium Stampede like in 2021, not Chris Jericho. Like I love when kind of like the second rate guy in the faction is the one to get the win for the faction. If Jey Uso is the one to get the win for the Bloodline OGs against Bloodline 2. Can you imagine?
Right. Okay.
Like, come on. Who says no?
I don't. But...
Either way, I think there's a lot to look forward to with Jey Uso. I'm gonna end it on an optimistic note, and I think we gotta move right along, Tyler, because that was a lot of Raw, but at the same time, that's just because Raw is good right now. Like, I feel like we should rejoice in the fact that Raw is good enough to talk about for this long.
Exactly, Raw's banging out. It's been the A show for quite some time now.
We don't have much NXT to talk about, so we're gonna skip NXT for this week, but we will talk about NXT next week because CM Punk's gonna be on the show, and we're on the road to the CW premiere and all that. AEW Dynamite. I want to talk. Let's talk briefly about Ricochet versus Sammy Guevara. This match happening this soon kind of shocked me because I figured that they would build to a... Yeah, Ricochet and Sammy Guevara was one of my like Ricochet dream matches in AEW, just because I think their styles are so similar, and I don't want to say
that's to me. I mean, no slouch to either man, but it just seemed like a nothing type, speed guy versus high flyer match. I didn't really think too much of it.
Whoa. Don't say speed. Don't say speed around Ricochet.
Oh, a trauma. Oh, I didn't mean to give him PTSD. My bad.
I say that not in the sense of like that's not a pay-per-view match necessarily, but actually with the rate that AEW is running pay-per-views like once a month, I could see it being a pay-per-view match. But still, I did not expect to get Ricochet Sammy Guevara like a month into his AEW run. The question I want to pose to you, and I really don't want to go off on a tangent here, but I do have a good booking idea for Ricochet. Do you see a long-term plan for Ricochet in AEW right now?
Do I personally see one for Ricochet? I mean, I'm not seeing anything long-term. I think short-term, you can do Will Ospreay versus Ricochet like at some time at the end of this year, maybe even next year. But in the meantime, between time, Ricochet is just having matches and just showing why he is one of the best going today. And like I said last week, it's going to be a bit hard to convince people how you differentiate from Dante Martin, from a Leo Rush, from all these other high flyers who can do similar things to you, and in some case maybe even better. So I think he's going to have a bit of an uphill battle in AEW, whereas in WWE it wasn't too much like that. There wasn't too many other people in his league at that spot. There's a lot of people in here, and Sammy Guevara in this match showed that he can go toe-to-toe with him, which nobody really questioned because we've seen Sammy Guevara for the last 5 years. We know he can go do crazy shit, which I thought in this match it was interesting because Sammy Guevara and Ricochet went up the ramp, and Sammy Guevara did a moonsault off of the Titantron onto Ricochet, and I just thought it was so interesting that they gave that spot to Sammy and not Ricochet. It's like, we've seen Sammy do this spot a few times, but that's a showcase spot that you give to like the new guy that just came in. It just felt like the showcase went to the wrong person here, and that's not the best look for Ricochet. I'm not saying it hurt him, but it's not the best look to have someone outclassing you, especially when you're supposed to be the hot new guy. So hopefully we don't get too many of that with Ricochet matches, because that would be a true issue if he's getting outclassed in these matches. That's not what should be happening. And like I said, that could be an unfortunate reality. Maybe this was the precursor, but it might have been just a one-off. Who knows? Long term, though, I'm not seeing anything. If you have your booking cap on, I would love to hear your plans.
So it's no secret that Ricochet needs a mouthpiece, right? We saw what happened at AEW All Out when he had that backstage segment with Will Ospreay, and Ospreay's gotten really good on the mic, so I don't want to say like, oh, even Ospreay outclassed him. Like, no, I love Will's promos, and he's going to be hard for anyone to match up with, and I thought Ricochet was pretty exposed as just not being able to go toe-to-toe in a promo battle. AEW has the biggest roster in active wrestling right now, and it's not even close, and guys struggle to get TV time. And how has AEW managed to get a lot of guys on television without forcing them in or shortening their segments? What they do is they made AEW the land of factions, so that way when you have guys like Angelo Parker and Matt Menard, two guys that probably wouldn't get TV time individually, but throw them in the Jericho Appreciation Society, and all of a sudden they're on the periphery of a 15-minute segment every single week. Shawn Spears was never getting TV time. Throw him in the Pinnacle. All of a sudden he's in the main event segments every single week.
But
there was another example
to their benefit, though, especially when we're talking
What I'm saying on that topic is that TV time is super invaluable for AEW, especially when they don't have a brand split too. Like Dynamite is the only show that really people fight to be on, and Collision ends up being like Dynamite scraps and all that. And another example on the faction note I will give, Wheeler Yuta is someone who I don't think would be getting any TV time if he wasn't associated with Blackpool Combat Club. Like that has helped his stock. So my pitch for Ricochet long term, to ensure that he still is interwoven into TV storylines well after the Ospreay feud has ended. And also, we solve his mouthpiece problem. AEW has recently had negotiations with a trio of MVP, Shelton Benjamin, and Bobby Lashley, aka the Hurt Business, aka the Hurt Syndicate, because they recently filed a trademark to make that their new faction name. Did I want the Hurt Business in AEW at first? I said, absolutely not. AEW is so overcrowded, they're not going to have room for them. However, MVP once said that when he was pitching the Hurt Business, he wanted both Cedric Alexander and Ricochet involved in the group. WWE said pick one. He picked Cedric because he thought Cedric needed it more, and Ricochet could stand on his own. Now we're in a position where if they bring the Hurt Business into the fold, you have an opportunity to get Ricochet involved in the Hurt Business to ensure he has television time for the long term. You give him MVP to be his mouthpiece, so you don't have to worry about the promos anymore. And on top of that, the Hurt Business can have ready-made feuds with not just Blackpool Combat Club and their whole work-shoot style of invading AEW, and maybe the Hurt Business are the ones who are like, hey, we used to be underground too. The whole Raw Underground stuff. Say what you will about Raw Underground. I thought the Hurt Business really cool in Raw Underground. On top of that too, they can also feud with the Elite. They can be the outsider group coming in to be like, hey, we're putting a stop to what you're doing. And that's under the assumption that they're operating as faces. They could also go heel and feud with other different types of groups. My point is, I think that there is value in bringing in the Hurt Business because it not only allows them to feud with some of the groups in AEW right now that don't have opposing groups to feud with, but it also solves two of Ricochet's biggest problems: his promos and his long-term future after the Ospreay feud.
I like that plan. I like the plan of Ricochet being in the Hurt Business. I think my only piece on that would be Ricochet in a faction with Bobby Lashley. Would probably be a bit like Ricochet would definitely be number 2, and immediate number 2 and number 3 at that point. But I could see it working. The only other thing I will say, and I think I will leave this up to imagination of some of you, if you're black, you'll get it. I think Ricochet would end up being a Drake in a group of Kendricks, and I will leave it at that.
I'm white and I understood that, Tyler. Oh, man.
I mean, he would. I'm sorry. He would. And then listen, I'm down for the all black group, but he just would. He just would.
Moving along. Let's talk a little bit about Darby and Mox. Big segment, Moxley kind of describing his whole mission right now of Darby's not ready, give me your title shot. Tyler, I'm worried right now. We're gonna combine these two segments. Actually, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
The Nigel stuff too. I was analyzing what was happening on Dynamite and being very confused at first because I was like,
we were all Nigel very confused.
Nigel and Bryan is a pay-per-view match. Well, no one is denying that. What are we doing running it at Grand Slam? And then I started to look at the calendar and I realized the next pay-per-view AEW has is Wrestle Dream. Where is Wrestle Dream taking place? Washington. Who has Bryan Danielson always said he wants to retire against? A fellow Washington wrestler. I think the state, and I'm getting chills just saying this out loud because I don't want to see him go. But I think Bryan Danielson's full-time wrestling career is set to end at Wrestle Dream. And I think they want to do Bryan losing to Darby Allin at Wrestle Dream for the world title. And in order to do that, in order to ensure that we meet that place on the calendar in the home state of Washington against a fellow Washington guy, how do we also squeeze in the Nigel McGuinness match? Grand Slam's the only option. And the fact that they are rushing this match for Grand Slam and not doing it at WrestleDream and not doing Darby and Bryan at Full Gear tells me that they're rushing everything to ensure Bryan can retire at WrestleDream. And it makes me sad to say out loud, but at the same time, I respect what Bryan wants, and I'm not going to criticize AEW for doing a bit of rushed booking, because this seems like something that is being done to accommodate for Bryan Danielson's like desire of how he wants to go out. And he also needs neck surgery too. Like, let's not kill this man before he calls it a career. Like, let's let him go out on his own terms the way he wants. Batista gave a lot of interviews recently where he was talking about, I loved the way I went out. I wouldn't have changed a thing. And we all look back at WrestleMania 35 and we're like, was that Triple H match really that good? Like, is that really how you want to go out? But Batista has not blinked. He's like, I went out against the guy I want to go out at, on the stage I want to go out at, and I retired on Instagram very quietly, like the way I wanted to do it. And so if Bryan wants to retire against a Washington competitor in his home state of Washington, I don't think we're right as fans to say you're wrong for feeling that. So I'm okay with what AEW is doing for that reason. I know I just kind of word vomited and don't really have a question to pose to you, Tyler, but based on everything I said, based on how the Nigel segment went, based on how the Bryan and Moxley or the Darby and Moxley segment went, how are you feeling about AEW's weird booking situation right now?
This is a very weird booking situation. Before I get into it, bouncing off what you said, are we 100% sure that Jon Moxley isn't beating Darby Allin in that Grand Slam? Because something tells me that Moxley might be beating him at Grand Slam. I don't know, man. I think we done did a whole lot of setup with Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, and I'm talking about them blatantly on commentary saying, we are going to do Darby Allin versus Bryan Danielson at AEW Grand Slam. And then within like a couple days, they said, Jon Moxley, get your ass out there and challenge Darby Allin, not for the title, because you don't have it yet, but have him challenge you for a shot that you earned at the championship. Jon Moxley could have went out and challenged Bryan Danielson himself. Same way that Nigel basically did. But he didn't. He went out there and he challenged Darby out. Well, no, technically, he told Darby to give me your shot. And then Darby said, well, you're going to have to earn it. And then that's how we got to Darby versus Jon Moxley happening at Grand Slam. But the point is, we already had a match set, and then they went and completely changed it. And now we're getting Nigel versus Bryan Danielson, which I'm happy about. I'm not complaining. I'm excited I get to see that match live. And I understand there was never going to be a long-term feud between the two. There was never going to be this weeks and weeks and months of build. Like, there's really no way to do it if Bryan's retiring soon. You kind of have to do it now or never. So I understand why that match is happening at Grand Slam and not Darby and Danielson. But what I don't understand is why now Darby is put in a position where his title shot is being completely taken away for a guy who is getting a really, really, really prominent storyline. Because we can't sit here and say that this Jon Moxley, Marina Shafir, Blackpool Combat Club pairing is not something big that's happening in AEW right now. It's big enough to the point where now there is massive question on whether Jon Moxley will beat Darby and challenge Bryan Danielson at Grand Slam. And I honestly, I would love to see Darby versus Bryan. I'm just worried that that's probably not what's going to happen now. Because if that were the case, they could have just moved that match to WrestleDream without all the chicanery and the hoops and hurdles and loops they just did in the last week to get us to where we are now. So I'm not too sure.
I don't think that, how do I phrase this? Moxley's whole thing with Darby is that you're not ready. So I think there's a way. I think Darby wins the match, but by like disqualification, or maybe Moxley wins and he doesn't let up and he like keeps bludgeoning Darby, and the referee changes the decision as like actually Moxley's disqualified and Darby wins, and then we continue to build the story of like is Darby ready? Because I don't think Darby's ready. I based on that promo on Wednesday.
But that's the thing. If Darby's not ready, then how do you fast track it to? Because Wrestle Dream's a month away. How do you fast track it if he's not ready? I don't think Darby should be beating Bryan. If I'm being honest, I don't think he should.
No,
I don't think he should at all. I get the sentiment. But I don't think Darby should be beating Bryan Danielson. Darby Allin as AEW World Champion, yeah, maybe a year or two from now, right now, this second, beating Bryan. I never envisioned Bryan's last match being against Darby Allin. That doesn't even sound right in my head. So the thought of Bryan Danielson's last match being against Darby is just not sitting right. The fact that him dropping to Darby does not sit right with me. But also at the same time, Bryan Danielson dropping the title to Moxley is just like, y'all couldn't have come up with something better than this? Didn't we see this already? So I don't know. It's a weird position for me.
I'll tell you how it's exactly going to go, because Darby, I think we both agree, is not ready, but I think AEW will emulate a very similar WWE storyline to ensure he is as ready as possible, and that is this. I think at Wrestle Dream, Darby will beat Bryan for the championship, and immediately after, Christian Cage will cash in that world title shot. And yeah, that's how it's gonna be. Because Christian Cage,
you're gonna nullify Bryan Danielson's moment by doing that cash, and that's lame.
That's how it's gonna be, because there's no way that Darby Allin has like a world title reign immediately after beating Bryan. And also too, Christian Cage has lost too many of his world title matches for this upcoming cash-in contract to fail. And he's been such a that's his fault. That's the booking's fault. That is this a work, brother. No, Christian Cage deserves to be world champion based on all of the character work he's been doing, and I think he's a very nice foil for Darby. Like, he is someone for Darby to chase the title and to get ready as that time comes. And also too, like, with all due respect, Bryan Danielson also is a wrestler that has never been like a spotlight hogger by any means. So I don't think twice about like, oh man, does that ruin Bryan's moment of his final match? For all I'm considered, like, Bryan's real retirement moment was at Wembley. Like, what an awesome moment that was. We don't need to have him like lose and have that be a big thing. Like he can lose to Darby, they can have the handshake, the confetti can fall, and then after Bryan has left the ring, Luchasaurus attack from behind, sets up for the whole cash in and all that. Either way, I think AEW right now has a really interesting story to play with, and I'm happy that I'm invested, that we're invested in an AEW storyline this much, that it's interweaving multiple aspects of the show, and we can talk about it at this length. So I think that's cool. I do want to just kind of skip the Casino Tag Gauntlet match because we spent a lot of time on the other topics with AEW. We got a lot of stuff to talk about with SmackDown. And Tyler, right from the start, this was the premiere episode of SmackDown on the USA Network. New theme, new intro, new graphics, new just kind of design. Are you a fan of new look SmackDown, or should I say new look Smack Sound? Smack Own? You saw how the logo looked, right? Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. The D's kind of big. Well, pause. Someone hit the virtual pause over that for me, okay? Never mind. I can't even finish the statement now. I'm not beating the BBC allegations though. What the fuck, bro? So lame. So lame. Okay. That aside, SmackDown on USA. I gotta collect myself now. That aside, SmackDown on the USA, the experience, the vibe of the show. We gotta talk first things first about what the initial view of the show being the intro. Megan Thee Stallion, Never Play being the intro. I mess with it. I don't hate it. I'm not gonna say I'm in love with it. It's gonna take some time to adjust to hearing Megan Thee Stallion on WWE television. It's not something I remember ever seeing. But I like Megan Thee Stallion. I like her music. I think she's cool. I think she's popping. I think the vibe of it's cool. I don't really see why some people hate it. I saw a lot of critique online that what happened to the rock music? Where's all the rock and wrestling? Wrestling is rock music. Such a lame take when you consider the fact that Roman Reigns' theme song is literally just a cinematic movie cut. Like, there's nothing about his theme song that remotely screams wrestling to me at all. The current theme song, nothing wrestling about it. There's a lot of other theme songs in wrestling right now that don't scream wrestling, or theme songs that don't have rock in it remotely at all. So this notion that wrestling is rock, I understand where this comes from, because back in the 2000s, maybe even back in the 90s, we had a lot of rock bands that were doing covers. Jim Johnson had a lot of rock themes. I understand the sentiment, but evolution is a thing too. And I'm not talking about the faction evolution or the theme song, the go-to theme song evolution. I'm talking about the actual word evolution.
Evolution is a mystery, actually.
Yeah, it is very much a mystery. And it's a mystery to these people because somehow they're not understanding that as the years go on, so do taste in genre, in music. And right now, rap and hip-hop is bigger than it's been in a very long time. So seeing hip-hop representation on Friday Night SmackDown, I'm down for it. Why is everyone so against it? Hey, listen, it's going to take y'all some time. Y'all going to have to make it work because it's here to stay, okay? Would you rather be a Def Rebel take? Would you rather be a Def Rebel song? Or would you rather Megan Thee Stallion? Pick and choose your battles, please. Pick and choose your battles. I thought the intro was fine. I thought the graphics were fire. The vibe of the show, I mean, it wasn't too different from the SmackDown on Fox that we saw before, but the logo's cool. I thought the title cards were out of this fucking world. I'm obsessed with the black and white and the blue eyes and go. I thought the graphics were fucking on par. The smooth editing of the show, they had the 4K cameras or the 1080p, whatever people call it, cameras out for the opening match of Cody until Sikoa. They had the title cards for the announcers, which I know they've had on Raw before, but it looked a little bit cleaner with the blue, I think. The very end of the show, for the first time, I think maybe ever, they had an Ed credit for the executive producers of the show, Paul Levesque and Lee Fitting. As a movie buff, maybe Liam can agree, I thought it was a nice touch. I liked it personally. I'm not upset about it. If you want to start throwing in end credit scenes like Marvel, I'm not going to be mad at you about it either. I don't know how you pull it off, but you could. Liam, what did you think? Upgrade or downgrade?
I'll start with the positives. I like the graphics. I like the match graphics, especially the Carmelo Hayes versus Andrade, the way they interwove that in. Awesome. And the intro video I thought was hot. I love getting my boy Logan Paul in there. Give him one of these. I like seeing Roman tossing the ones and all that. SmackDown felt like a big deal from the intro. I don't like the theme. I'm not going to say I hate it. I don't like it. I'm not part of this weird cult where they're like, what happened to rock music? Like, rap is not wrestling. That is completely not true. We were at Wale Mania this year, Tyler. Rap is very much ingrained in wrestling. The best part of the weekend
was Wale Mania. What the hell?
It was better than a lot of things at WrestleMania weekend. Wale Mania was definitely in my top 3 of that weekend. So I don't want to hear the rap thing. I just don't think the song fits. And also, maybe I'm dropping a bombshell here. The best of Def Rebel is better than the best of Meg Thee Stallion. I said it. I don't care for Meg Thee Stallion's music. Hashtag free Tory. We move along.
Free Tory.
We move along. The real problem with SmackDown's presentation is the logo. The logo is ass. Let's not beat around the bush. The logo makes the show feel so amateur hour. I texted my friends when this thing dropped, and I was like, man, this logo reminds me of late 2000s, early 2010s, taped on a Tuesday, airing on a Friday SmackDown, where no one cares, no one's watching the show, everyone who's a diehard wrestling fan is reading the spoilers online, and maybe they'll catch the highlights on YouTube. And that sucks because the product does not reflect the logo that we're seeing. And maybe I'm crazy here, but I think part of it too is when I think of SmackDown, I think of a blue and white logo, not blue and silver. Whenever it's been blue and silver, it's been the taped version of SmackDown. So in my head, as soon as I see the silver in the logo, I'm like, that reminds me of a time when SmackDown was so clearly the B show. And I thought the SmackDown logo on Fox emulated like a football logo, like a Sunday Night Football logo, and I thought that made it feel big time.
For too, yeah.
Exactly. So USA Network obviously wants SmackDown to replace Raw because it's not going to have Raw next year. And I'm worried right now that it's being presented as a big deal, but once Raw goes to Netflix, no one is going to care about SmackDown as much as it has been valued. Like, I think Roman will probably go to Raw at the next draft, and he'll be on Netflix and all that. And I think that's going to be tough for SmackDown to bounce back on. So the logo, I think, is a weak start. But again, and also too, oh my God, the mic flags having the S on it instead of the WWE logo. I hated that. That was so dumb. That was
tiny,
not good.
But
like,
yeah.
Little things like that. Again, WWE is so hot right now that we're allowed to complain about stuff like this. Exactly. Like, it's petty, of course, but if the product was shit, we wouldn't be complaining about this kind of stuff. So maybe it's a good thing that we're hyper analyzing the font and the color choice and stuff like that.
The product, our passion.
Exactly. As for the show itself, we touched about the tag match that's happening earlier in the show, so I don't think we need to really recycle it too much. I do just kind of want to go over.
I do want to loosely talk about Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa because I do want to ask you the match itself. Nothing to really brag about. How do you feel about Cody beating Solo clean in a steel cage match? Because I think this damaged him even more. Of people saying they don't care about him, him losing to Cody clean in this steel cage match did him no favors, especially when Tama Tonga Tongalo and Jacob Fatu came out after the match, climbed the cage, and attacked Cody Rhodes when they could have did it earlier. They waited until after the match, after Solo lost. How do you think this Solo loss? How do you think this goes with him right now?
Solo's in a tough spot. You know why? Because if he won this match, people would have said, "Oh, of course, like booking, looking out for Solo." If Solo got DQ'd in this match, protecting Solo by doing this, and Solo losing clean is like it damaged Solo. So because of how disbelievable Solo is in his current role, there's no way that it was going to work. And so I think you're better off just kind of embracing what the crowd is already thinking of, like, you're a fake tribal chief. You're cosplaying as the tribal chief. No one actually believes you to be the tribal chief. And hopefully that means when the time comes, Jacob Fatu will betray Solo, and it'll feel warranted because of the whole fact of, like, you're not fitting into this role as well as other people in your own faction would. So I understand what you're saying, but Solo, I think his whole thing right now is he's a pretender. So I guess it's okay for him to operate like a pretender. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about the match. I do want to get to your question about the upcoming tag.
Okay. The upcoming tag. Yeah. So the tag team match that was confirmed for Bad Blood. You know, the one we were talking about earlier about how Drew and CM Punk should not main event the show. Well, we did have it confirmed later on in this show. It was a couple segments in. I think Cody Rhodes said he did not want to team up with Roman Reigns, and then later in the night, they came face to face after Solo tried to attack them and everything, and then they both signed a contract, so it's official. Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns at Bad Blood. I think it's a high marquee match. Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns teaming up for the first time, whereas 5 months ago they were on separate tag teams at a main event WrestleMania. So my question to you, and the question I posed to everybody in the comments, because this is really the burning question I have. In this, let me not say blockbuster, I don't think it's that fucking big, but in this huge tag team.
Whoa, you think it's a headlining pay-per-view match, though?
Yeah, man.
But you don't think it's a blockbuster match?
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to make it seem like it's Cody and Roman. It's Cody Roman versus The Rock and Jacob. It's solos here. Jacob and Solo Sikoa versus Cody and Roman Reigns. Liam, which team wins? And the better question is, who takes the pin? Because you have 4 men in this match that arguably all should be equally protected. And someone has to lose. And to do a DQ or count out finish would be absolute dog shit. Now, are we counting it out of the fact? No, because it's WWE. You never count out the fact that them doing a DQ or count out finish. But if someone has to take the pin, who is it? Who wins the match?
All right, I have 2 options for you here. There's a safe option, and there's a ballsy option. The safe option is to recycle how this episode of SmackDown opens, where Cody Rhodes pins Solo Sikoa. And the logic there is that if the faces are going to win, Roman shouldn't get the pinfall victory, because if this bloodline feud is going to continue, we need a reason for it to continue. If Roman pins either Solo or Jacob, how can we argue that they should still be feuding after this pay-per-view? And I say that because think about what happened at WrestleMania. The only pinfall combination that could have happened, which was Rock pins Cody. Because if Roman pins Cody, who cares about the next night? Roman already pinned Cody, and now Roman's going to face Cody again. If Seth got pinned by either Rock or Roman, well, Seth has a title match the next night. Now he's all of a sudden a hugely unbelievable challenger. If Cody pins Roman, that makes the title match the next night not mean anything. And if Cody pins Rock, I mean, that was just never going to happen. Like, that, it's The Rock. Exactly. Like, let's be real. And so also, too, and it's set up wonderfully. Cody has now won the title, but now The Rock has a reason to claim a title match down the line. So that was a perfect combination. And I look at this tag match in the same way. You could be safe, and you could do Cody pinning Solo and move forward and have Roman be like, all right, we won, but I didn't win, and I still want to get my hands on Solo. You can't have Roman pin Solo because this feud is going to continue. The ballsy option, and I don't think they'll do it, but man, it would be cool if they did. If Jacob Fatu pins Roman Reigns, he would be only the third person to pin the tribal chief. Jey Uso pinned Roman at Money in the Bank 2023. Cody Rhodes pinned Roman at WrestleMania this past April. Jacob Fatu could be the third person ever to pin Roman Reigns at Bad Blood 2024. I don't think Roman gets that much damage from taking a pinfall this so soon after. I think it does wonders for Jacob Fatu's stock, and I think it makes this Bloodline versus Bloodline 2.0 story all that much more interesting. Does WWE have the balls to have Roman Reigns suffer a pinfall loss in his first match since WrestleMania? I don't think so. But man, if they do, I think that would be one of the, I don't want to say best booking decisions of the year, but one of the ballsiest, that's for sure.
Well, who I think wins this match, I think it's Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns is a great tag team on paper because of the given storyline. However, in execution, they should not be gelling well together because of their given history. I don't think they should be having the cohesion that Cody and Seth Rollins had at WrestleMania. I don't think they should be bickering and arguing and slapping each other and there's a turn. Don't need to go to the lengths of the tag team partner leaves the ring trope that we see in these other makeshift tag teams. But I think that there should be an obvious disconnect at some point, and that leads to this team losing. And who takes the pin, feeding off of Liam's point, this is also my point going into this podcast, is that Jacob Fatu should pin Roman Reigns. 100%. It should be Jacob Fatu pinning Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns will be fine taking a pinfall. It is one pin since WrestleMania. Roman Reigns, for that matter, has not been pinned since 2019 before he lost to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. Him getting pinned for a second time this year, humongous deal. Humongous deal. Does it damage him? No. Roman Reigns has a legacy laid out for him that can't be muddied unless he muddies it himself. Jacob Fatu pinning him won't muddy it. Solo Sikoa pinning him won't muddy it. It would be very questionable, and I would understand, but still questionable, but it would muddy his reign. It would not muddy Roman's legacy whatsoever. So I don't think anybody should be hopping on here worried about Roman Reigns looking weak. You can't make Roman Reigns look weak at this point. We're too far deep into this bloodline story, the legendary run for Roman to look weak. You would have to defeat Roman Reigns several times back to back for him to start looking weak. And Triple H is not going to do that. He barely wanted to do that for the last 5 years. What makes you think he's going to do that now? So yes, Liam said it's ballsy, and he says it's ballsy because, like I just said, the likelihood of Roman losing twice is slim to none. However, if there was anybody on this entire roster who has a case for beating Roman Reigns, it is the man they are trying to build up as this unstoppable force in Jacob Fatu. When WWE first brought in Umaga, this man was on a tirade. I believe he pinned John Cena in their first match, right? If I'm remembering correctly. The first time they faced off, I think Umaga beat John Cena. And then they had the rematch at Royal Rumble, and then John Cena beat him for it. You have to establish this man in some way. Now, I understand Jacob Fatu already had his debut. He already had his first few matches. He got some wins under his belt already. It's not like Jacob Fatu is just debuting for the very first time. We all understand how dangerous this man could be. The precedent's already been set. But if you really want to solidify how dangerous this guy can be, someone who could, and if anything, if you want Solo Sikoa to possibly start questioning himself as the tribal chief, then Solo 100% shouldn't be getting a pin in this match. It should be the guy who is worshiping Solo Sikoa getting the pin in this match. Solo Sikoa wants to be, well, he is the tribal chief because he has the Ulo follow, right? Well, imagine Solo Sikoa's mindset if the man under him is the one to beat the tribal chief. Solo Sikoa hasn't even been granted the opportunity to face Roman Reigns yet, up until this point, and it's Jacob Fatu who pins him. What kind of story can you tell with that alone? There's already a story with Jacob pinning Roman, but now you have an additional story with Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu because Solo didn't get the win. I think there's a lot that you can do with that versus Solo pins Roman. That's, I think, probably the easy answer because that sets up their possible match at Survivor Series and whatnot. And yeah, sure, I guess. Yeah. But how awesome would it be to see Jacob Fatu pinning Roman Reigns? Cody Rhodes getting pinned by Solo Sikoa, it's not believable at this point. Solo lost twice. Jacob Fatu pinning Cody Rhodes, unless you're doing Jacob versus Cody for the title at some point, I don't see where that works. So I think Jacob Fatu pinning Roman is really the best option. Not the only option, but it's the best option. That's what I would do if I were Booker.
It also sets up seeds of dissension of Jacob Fatu being the one of like, wait, am I actually the one carrying the load in the bloodline? Like, does Solo actually deserve to be tribal chief? I think after hearing your analysis, Tyler, I think this is still the ballsiest option, but it feels more and more like the right option. It's going to be a hot pay-per-view. I'm excited to check it out. We should move on to our final segment, that being PW 500 came out this year. You get your issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Tyler?
Yes, I did. I downloaded it online because who actually buys physical magazines these days, right? Do you have a physical magazine, Liam?
I don't have this issue, but I still have my old WWE magazines. I still have all my old Sports Illustrated.
I wish I did. You know, funny story. In fourth grade, I actually got in trouble. I got suspended for the very first time in fourth grade because I had a WWE magazine, and in there was the beautiful Tori Wilson in just a bra and panties. And I brought it to school to show my friends. And the teacher saw it, and I got pulled to the principal's office, and I got sent home for the day. I was suspended out of school for a day. My mom thought it was she was mad, but thought it was very stupid. So, yeah, little trivia about Sooplex. Hornball.
That's a good story.
Sooplex, I guess.
Let's rather than go through the whole top 100 like we were originally planning, we both made our own top 25, and so I think let's.
Well, let's each read our. Well, instead of going through the 500, let's at least go through the top 10.
Okay, we can go through the top 10. Top 10's fine.
Okay, so of the 500 wrestlers on this list, and now I said this earlier, I'll say it again. I don't know 500 wrestlers off the top of my head, so I give the absolute most respect and admiration to the men who put this together, to men and women who put this together, because it took a lot. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the PWI 500, it is an annual newsletter ranking wrestling's best from a ranking of 500 to 1. This list is evaluated solely on kayfabe and weighs the following criteria: win and loss record, championships won, quality of competition, major feuds, prominence within a wrestler's promotion, overall wrestling ability, being the last one, and the evaluation period is from August 1st, 2023 to July 31st, 2024. So it's not the calendar year of January 1st to not September 15th. It is August last year to August this year. That is the period we're going off of. There's a humongous list of people here, and I wish we could tackle all 500, but we will be here all night. So we'll go through the top 10 real quick. Going through the line here. And number 10 is CMLL's Mystico, which I admittedly do not watch CMLL, so I don't really have much to comment on with Mystico being number 10. And number 9 is Gunther, which that makes sense. He's had a great year as IC champion and then going into his now reign as the World Heavyweight Champion. I mean, I don't think too many people did it better than Gunther. I think given the guys who were above him, he could have been maybe like 2 more spots up, but I'll take number 9. Number 8, we have Jon Moxley. Maybe a little higher given, you know what, I can understand this because Jon Moxley had a better 2022, better 2021, better 2020. Jon Moxley, I think, after losing the the AEW World Championship in early 2023 or whatever he last held the title, I think he kind of took a bit of a backseat, especially after getting injured in that match against Rey Fenix at Grand Slam. He wasn't featured on TV as much, took a little bit of time off, just did more stuff with the Blackpool Combat Club, and then recently now he's on TV doing stuff. So him being number 8, I can see that. MJF at number 7, that makes sense. I'm under the ideology that if a wrestler is injured for a period of time, that should definitely affect their standings on a list. MJF, if he spent more time in the ring, he probably would have been a case for being top 5, but number 7, I can agree. Damian Priest at number 6, I think that might be a bit too high for him. I think he's had a great year as being a part of the Bloodline. He obviously cashed in
Judgment Day.
The Judgment Day. Thank you very much for correcting me. The Judgment Day. Yes, El Campeon as part of what would be Spanish for Tribal Chief? I don't know. But anyway, El Campeon, obviously being Money in the Bank briefcase holder for a duration of the year, cashed again this year successfully on Seth Rollins. Him being the World Heavyweight Champion, then being kicked out of the Bloodline again. The Judgment Day. And now he's the Terror Twins with Rhea Ripley. He's had a great year. Would I have him in number 6? I would probably put him at like 10. Maybe knock Mystical off somewhere along the line because, again, I don't watch. But that's just me. Number 5 is Tetsuya Naito. Now, listen, I don't watch New Japan year-round anymore. I just don't. But Naito at number 5 is kind of crazy to me, considering I understand he's been IWGP World Heavyweight Champion the entire year. And
not true. John Moxley was champion.
Oh yeah, right. There was a blemish there. I almost forgot about that. I understand.
That's why Moxley is in the top 10. That's like that surged him.
You just reminded me. Thank you, because I honestly forgot that reign even happened for a hot second. Tetsuya Naito, he's been champion for a good part of the year, most of the year. We could basically just say, and he's been doing some good things over in Japan, but it's not even the best of any of the runs he's had as world champion. And he's also kind of teetering on like his lesser performances over the calendar year. So I understand the sentiments. I would have had Naito somewhere in the 10s, 11s, 12s. I mean, if I'm being honest, he's not even on my 25 at all. But number 4, we have Seth freaking Rollins. The guy was World Heavyweight Champion for majority of 2020, well, all of 2023. And going into 2024, that makes sense. I can see that. I don't disagree with this, him being number 4. Not number 4 on my list, but I agree. Number 3, Will Ospreay. 100% get behind that. There, if you want to make a case for somebody being the pound-for-pound best wrestler of the year, Will Ospreay is that guy. No contest about it. Number 2 being Swerve Strickland. I mean, this is a gimme. He should have been top 5 in any list. Exactly. I see you, Liam. I'm the same way. I mean, from being in this intense feud with Heyman Page that's still going on, to being AEW World Champion, to main event and pay-per-views. He's in a great spot. Number 2 and number 1 being Cody Rhodes. I mean, he finished the story. I don't really see how he's not number 1. My only big gripe is that Bryan Danielson's not higher, but we'll talk about that when we get to my list. So that's the top 10 of the PWI 100. Liam, what did you think about the top 10? Would you have changed people around? Do you agree with them largely?
I like that the PWI 500 is a merger of like actual good in ring and also accomplishment, because like it helps spread the wealth. Like, do I agree with Mystico and Tetsuya Naito being in the top 10? No, they're nowhere near my top 50s. However, it's cool that like, you know, New Japan and CMLL get representation within the top 10. I dig that. And same with like MJF, Jon Moxley, Will Ospreay, Swerve Strickland. Like it's awesome that 2 AEW guys occupy 2/3 of the top 3. Like that's awesome. And obviously too, Cody Rhodes. Again, you can say all you want. Like Will Ospreay, pound for pound, is he better in the ring than Cody? I would say so. But has Cody delivered more big moments this year? I would probably say so. Like it's fun to be able to measure moments versus matches, titles versus quality of in-ring work. And I like how PWI does their rankings. Like we can talk a lot about, you know, your 5-star matches and stuff like that, and what pundits actually mean anything. PWI is one of the last ones that I think actually, like, I put value in. I like hearing their lists, and I don't want to say they're 100% correct, but I'd say, like, I agree with, like, 93% of what's going on in the PWI 500 on a yearly basis. I'm very curious to hear about our personal top 25. Should I go first, or should you go first?
You go first.
Okay. And this was pretty spontaneous, my list. I put it together, and some of them I rearranged as time went on. Some of them I just left in. We'll start from 25. We'll count backwards. Number 25, I got Marcus Mathers. He's an independent wrestler. He made the PWI 500. Personally, I just saw him wrestle quite a bit this year in person on the Massachusetts scene, and I think it's really cool to see him on the come up. So he makes my top 25. Number 24, I got Sting. I really enjoyed the retirement tour. I loved Revolution. And again, these are wrestlers that I enjoy their work. I watch their matches. And so sure, did Sting put on better matches than Hijo del Vikingo? Probably not. However, I was here. I was present for Sting matches. Number 23, I got Randy Orton. 22, I got Jon Moxley. 21, I got Ilya Dragunov. Loved his work in NXT. Loved his feud with Carmelo Hayes. Loved his match with Trick Williams at Stand and Deliver, and really liked his Raw match against Ricochet earlier this year. I was at that Raw. I was in Connecticut, and I really dug that match. 20, I got Chad Gable. 19, Adam Copeland. 18, Mustafa Ali. Love what he's doing on the Indies. Love what he's doing in TNA. Just really like how he has kind of taken the Cody Rhodes, Matt Cardona blueprint and elevated his stock since leaving WWE. 17, I got Dominic Mysterio. Great character work. 16, I got Damian Priest. 15, Kevin Owens. 14, Sami Zayn. 13, Hangman Page. 12, Jey Uso. 11, LA Knight. 10, Christian Cage. Now here we go into the top 10. So 10, Christian Cage. 9, MJF. 8, Gunther. 7, Logan Paul. Love my guy. 6, Seth Rollins. And I put Seth Rollins. I don't want to call myself a Seth Rollins hater. I'm definitely a Seth Rollins criticizer. I don't think he's as good as people make him out to be. However, his WrestleMania 40 performance alone got him in my top 10. That moment when his leg gave out and he was doing the curb stomp against Drew McIntyre by leaping into the air and landing on his back because he couldn't land on his leg. And then when Drew won the title and he's crying on the ramp and he points to Drew and he's like, "You fucking deserve it." I thought that was awesome. And then when he came out in the Shield gear, but he collapsed because he literally gave his all during that WrestleMania weekend. Huge respect for Seth Rollins. Loved his work at Mania this year. He's my number 6. 5 is Drew McIntyre. 4 is Bryan Danielson for All in London alone. Oh my god. And also his Dynasty match against Ospreay. Love that match. 3 is Swerve Strickland. 2 is Will Ospreay. And number 1 is Cody Rhodes. Finish the Story is the greatest wrestling moment I've ever got to experience live. And that to me trumps in-ring matches. Moments are why I watch wrestling, and the final 5 minutes of WrestleMania 40, I'm blessed that I have it on video because I will never forget it.
100%. I love your list. Let's get into the SWI, the Sooplex Wrestling Illustrated top 25 wrestlers stretching from August 31st, 2023 to, let's say, July 31st, 2024 or whatever. So, a couple honorable mentions, people who almost made the list but didn't. Joe Hendry, Kenosuke Takeshita, Tetsuya Naito, and The Rock. The Rock may have made the list had he wrestled twice, but he wrestled once, so honorable mention. At number 25, I have Jack Perry. At number 24, I have Trick Williams. Number 23, Ilya Dragunov. I thought he had a really good year. Would have been a bit higher had he, been, I think, featured a little bit more on TV from what I see now. I mean, a little bit more now than it was earlier, but still. Number 22, Randy Orton. Number 21, Braun Breaker. Definitely will be higher on the list next year, I can tell. Number 20, I have Dominic Mysterio. At number 19, I have Jey Uso. He's been super over this year. Definitely would be higher if he wasn't the contender and not the champion. Number 18, I have El Campeon Damian Priest. And number 17, I have Yota Tsuji, who's been making a big splash ever since his re-debut in New Japan at Dominion last year in the main event against Sonata. No one talks about that enough, how good that match was and how impressive his debut was. And then going on to be in the finals of this year's New Japan Cup. Not only being in the finals of this year's New Japan Cup, but then going on to be in the finals of the G1 Climax. This dude was a two-time tournament finalist in the same year. Didn't win either one. He did win the New Japan Cup, didn't he? I think he did win New Japan Cup. He won New Japan Cup and then he did win the G1, but he was in the finals of both of them, is my point. So, people don't talk about him enough, but don't worry, son, I got you. I will talk about you if no one else does. Number 16, Sami Zayn. I know I'm his biggest hater and his biggest critic right now, but I gotta be respectful, put him on the list, because he been doing his thing. Number 15, Obafemi. He's been killing it absolutely throughout the entire year. I guarantee he'll be higher on the list come next year, maybe even in the draft to be on Raw by that time. Number 14, I have CM Punk. He would be higher had he wrestled more, but technically in the calendar year, he's only wrestled like 3 times because he spent most of it injured or fired. Number 13, we have Drew McIntyre. I know CM Punk's going to hate to hear that, but yes, Drew McIntyre has one leg over you in this situation. And number 12, MJF. I would put him higher, but similar to CM Punk, he was injured for a good portion of the year. Had he wrestled, he would be higher. And number 11, I have Hangman Page. When I think about it, I might have actually dropped Hangman just a little bit lower, considering that he wasn't really super prominent towards the end of 2023 and the beginning of 2024. But that all being said, he's having a really strong end of the year, so we'll root for him there. Number 10, similar to Liam, Christian Cage. I mean, father of the year, what could we say? In my top 10 now, obviously. Number 9, Zack Sabre Jr. This guy's had a supreme calendar year just from all the matches he had. 2 banger matches with Bryan Danielson, him creating his faction in the TMDK, and winner of the G1 Climax. He is only the second Gaijin ever to win a G1 Climax. People are not talking about this enough. Zack Sabre Jr., I will. Jon Moxley at number 8. Gunther at number 7. Deservedly so. At number 6, we have Seth freaking Rollins. He would be a little bit higher, but number 5 had to go to the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns, who may have been even higher had he wrestled more, but given how prominent he is as a part of the major arcing storyline in WWE over the past year, I think he at least had to be in the top 5. 4 through 1 was my hardest. I interchanged this a lot today, but I think I settled on this. Number 4, I have Swerve Strickland. He's had a great year we talked about earlier. There's just 3 guys I think that just by a smidge had a better year. And number 3, I have Will Ospreay, who I think had a better year as a performer than anybody on this entire list, except maybe number 1. Number 2, I have Cody Rhodes, which I know that might shock some of you. A lot of you have Cody Rhodes as your number 1. He finished the story, all that. Number 1, who somehow managed to be number 13 on the PWI. At number 1, I have Bryan Danielson, who I think deservedly, from the year he has had, the body of work this man has laid out, the amount of 5-star classics, the storylines, the moments we have gotten from him, Wembley alone, we have gotten from Bryan Danielson, I think in some ways usurps Cody's year. I mean, that's a hot debate. That's a hot topic. Some of you could comment down below. But I think his year almost overtakes Cody in some ways, especially with the way Wembley ended. I don't know. I would give number 1 to Bryan. I mean, we could comment all day on whether it should be Cody or Bryan, but I think it goes to Bryan. That's my PWI. That's my SWI. What about yours? All right.
I like it. I like that 25. Bryan Danielson over Cody's a bold choice, but I mean, he had a lot of really good matches in the qualifying period. His match against Zack Sabre happened in the qualifying period,
and to me, that's the greatest qualifying period. 2 of them.
Greatest technical match of all time. Though the one on AEW is the one I'm referencing.
Oh, okay, yeah. The AEW one and the New Japan one. Both of them were fantastic, by the way. Yeah, both of those happened in the same calendar year. So that's why you had to put him at least number 9. But that being said, that was the PWI 500. We do have to get to the mailbag. We're not going to go over every single one because we went over time a little bit. But we're going to hit on 2 real quickly. And the first one we're going to hit on is Danjo Banjo 19? Danjo Banjo 19.
Yeah.
He asks, are they fumbling the Wyatt 6 and how would you book them? Are they fumbling the Wyatt 6? I wouldn't say they are. Are they the most prominent thing going on Raw right now? No, they're not. The most prominent thing on Raw is the Judgment Day, and I think it's going to be the Judgment Day for a long time. The same way that the prominent storyline, the storyline on SmackDown, is the Bloodline. The storyline on Raw is the Judgment Day, and even when the Wyatt 6 came in, I didn't get the sense that was going to change. Does them not being the forefront kind of affect them in some way? I do think it does, especially when you think of all the story build-up going into their debut and them being, I think, almost shackled to American Made, which I think we gotta start wrapping this up so that way they can move on to other people. We don't want that to be their entire existence on the brand, is just being attached to Chad Gable and what's going on with his faction. I do love the unraveling of the inner minds of Bo Dallas and Nikki Cross and Eric Rowan. But in some ways, I think that it just doesn't fit in the mold of Monday Night Raw and it being, because that's the thing we ran into with Bray Wyatt and The Fiend, is that the Bray Wyatt character was great and the Fiend character was great, but it was in its own universe. It felt like it didn't take place on the same show. It just happened to be at the same time that Raw was happening. Everybody else on the show was oblivious to the QR codes and the signs and everything. It's like, unless you are engrossed in a storyline with the Wyatt 6, no one references, talks about, acknowledges them. It's like they don't exist to the Monday Night Raw brand. They're just their own people. And I think that's fine for the fans of the gimmick and the fans that are there to see the Wyatt 6, but are they adapting to being a part of the Raw roster? I feel like no. Is it a fumble? I wouldn't say a fumble. How would I book them? I mean, the way they're being put, the way their story is being told, I think it's fine. I just would wrap up this American-made storyline, get them away from them, and have them start feuding with a single star that we can invest a couple months into between him and, Bo Dallas or Uncle Howdy, whatever you want to call him. And I don't think we head in a direction of every person in the faction holding the championship, because that's very commonplace these days. I don't think we head in that direction. I just don't see how, when they're not the main focus on Raw. And I don't even know if they ever will be the main focus on Raw. So I just think getting them in different feuds with different people is going to help them in some ways. But I think you run into the same issue with Bray Wyatt and The Fiend, unless they are the main story, and they're not. They just kind of don't fit. I don't know. Liam, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the Wyatt Six are being booked as good as they can be right now, in the sense of it was always going to be very difficult. They are by nature a group of heels, yet because of the Bray Wyatt circumstance, they kind of have to be baby faces.
Yeah.
And you also want them to be spooky, but not have powers, and have them be rooted in reality. And again, I don't think it's being fumbled. I think just the fact that it is so confined to one corner of Raw, people are looking at it with a little bit more of a critical lens. And I think that's okay. I think, like I said, they're doing the best they can with it. And I am looking forward to what a Wyatt Six feud post American Made looks like. The same way I'm looking forward to CM Punk's future programs after Drew McIntyre. That those two acts, CM Punk and the Wyatt Six, have both been defined by one feud since they popped into WWE storylines in the present day. And what they can offer beyond that one feud, I think, is a lot more intriguing than the feuds they're in right now. Not to say CM Punk and Drew McIntyre isn't intriguing, but I'm definitely much looking forward to Punk versus Kevin Owens, Punk versus Seth Rollins, like Punk versus maybe Stone Cold Steve Austin down the line. The same way I'm looking forward to what happens when the Wyatt Six and the Judgment Day entangle. What happens when the Wyatt Six maybe target the Bloodline? Like there's a lot of more possibilities that are interesting to me, much more than what's going on with American Made right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And let's get into our final question here, which comes from One Hawk Give 'Em Hell. And it says, favorite place you have traveled to for a show, and what did you do if you had time while you were there? I like this question because I travel a lot for wrestling shows. Liam, you working in the journalism world, you travel a lot for wrestling shows as well. So I figured this would be a nice question for us to talk about maybe one of our favorite stories traveling, or one of our favorite places to travel, since we've been to so many different cities over the U.S. and outside of the U.S. For me, my favorite place that I have traveled to for a wrestling show it's between two, and I'm having a very hard time deciding, and I've been tackling this for the last 2 days, has been Tokyo, Japan for Wrestle Kingdom, obviously, and the second one being Las Vegas for the first Double or Nothing. Tokyo, Japan, for an obvious reason. I've never been to Japan. It's a wrestling show in a completely different part of the world. The experience, the culture is extremely different from anything I've ever experienced in my entire life. It was just a shell shock in a sense. Not a shell shock, but a culture shock in many ways. And going to a venue where the I don't want to say culture again, it's redundant. But going to a venue where the way the crowd reacts and the way the crowd feels and the vibes of it are so different. And you don't want to be the American in the crowd, because it's easy to be like, yeah, this is also this is. But it's like, you just feel awkward and out of place, and everyone's looking at you. So you almost kind of have to adjust on the fly to how the crowd is. And it was very welcoming being in a crowd where everyone's not on our feet and cheering for everything. It's just like claps and, chanting for names. And I don't know, I enjoyed that. And I'm going to be going back to Wrestle Kingdom 19 in January. And I can't wait to have that experience again. I'm so excited for it. The one thing I'm very excited, I think probably more excited than for Wrestle Kingdom, is I get to go to Stardom Dream Queendom 2024, bro. Like, I've not as big into Stardom as I used to be. But when I was getting into like New Japan heavy, I started getting into Stardom and Japanese and Joshi wrestling. And, I didn't get a chance to go to a big Stardom show when I was in Japan the first time, because there wasn't any being held. But now Stardom is a much bigger, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a much bigger stage and a much bigger company than it was when I first started watching. Now they have these WrestleMania-like shows called Queendom shows. And Dream Queendom is their end of the year show. It's their biggest show of the year, arguably. And I am so honored to be able to go to that show and see it happen live. It's something I've been wanting to scratch off my bucket list, and I finally get to do that. So I'm excited for that. That's like one. And then the other one, which I think ties into me still debating about it, is Las Vegas for Double or Nothing. My first time in Vegas, I had a blast. I feel like I'm kind of a bit of a different person now than I am when I first went to Vegas. I was a bit more chilled out, low key, didn't really go out too much. I mean, now when we go to Vegas for WrestleMania 41, when I'm gonna be turning 28, you know what I mean? Like, I know I want to do media for WrestleMania this year, but I don't know. I feel like I might not want to show my ass too much to get my badge taken away from me. So I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like going to Vegas. I know, Liam, I might need assistance. Who knows, man? Anyway, but Vegas, I had an absolute blast. And just the weekend overall, all these wrestling fans in this one area, all these wrestlers, all these personalities, everybody who was anybody in the wrestling industry was in Vegas for Double or Nothing, the very first one. It was a surreal feeling and weekend that I think I've only experienced that one time. I've been to Wrestle Kingdom, but the weekend experience for Double or Nothing is unforgettable. Unforgettable. Just from the show to all the events that happen at StarCast, to being able to go on the streets and seeing wrestlers around every corner. I can't wait to have that experience again next year for WrestleMania. So for me, it is Las Vegas and Tokyo. What say you, Leo?
I have two that come to mind. I've been on planes for various wrestling shows, but the ones I look back on with a lot of fond memories are the times I got behind the wheel and did a little trip. The first one was for the first AEW Dynamite Grand Slam. I drove from Syracuse, New York, which is very upstate New York, all the way down to New York City, 4 hours in the car, and I got to watch Danielson versus Omega live, which was such a magical moment. And I didn't stay over in the night. The show wrapped up. I got some pizza with one of my friends from high school who also happened to be at the show, and I turned right back around. And from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. I drove on that highway from Manhattan all the way up to Syracuse, and I was in class the next day at 9 a.m. wearing my AEW hoodie. My friends were like, "Were you in New York like last night?" And I was like, "Yeah. I love this shit. This is what I live for." And I emulated that one more time for Forbidden Door 2023 for Omega versus Ospreay. As soon as that match got announced, I was like, I need to be there. I can't afford a flight. How do I do this? And then I was like, how far is Boston to Toronto by car? Turns out it was 8 hours? 8 hours, yeah. 600 miles, 8 hours behind the wheel. I woke up at 5 a.m., got behind the wheel for 6, drove from 6 to 3 p.m. straight, 6 to 2, whatever it ended up being. Arrived in Toronto, Scotiabank Arena, Omega versus Ospreay, greatest match I've ever watched live. Okada versus Danielson was cool too. Got to participate in the press conference afterwards, which was awesome, getting to ask Ospreay a question. That was kind of like our first one-on-one interaction. We've had 2 interviews since then, which was really, really cool. Him being my favorite wrestler will always be like special to get to talk to him. And the drive home, again, I was going to try to find a motel or a hotel to crash. I leave the Scotiabank Arena. I'm driving around Toronto. I find this Motel 6, and I was like, I pull into the parking lot at 2 a.m. I was like, hey, man, you got a room for me? I only need to sleep for like 4 hours. I'll give you like $50. And unfortunately, the guy decided he was going to take advantage of poor little Liam, and he said $250. And I was like, brother, are you crazy? I'll just sleep in my car outside and save like what would have been my flight cost. And so I ended up pulling into what I deemed to be a safe parking lot, put my seat back, tried my best to sleep. I only slept for like an hour because I really hate sleeping in public places, even if I'm in my own car. I'm just like, I don't know who's watching me through the window. What if my doors aren't fully locked? What if someone tries to break in? I'm so defenseless right now. And I woke up around like 5 a.m. I drove out of Toronto to Niagara Falls and saw Niagara Falls from the Canadian side for the first time as I was waking up. And then I drove for about 2 hours, pulled into a Starbucks, did my work day from Starbucks from my laptop, and then drove the rest of the way home, including in some of the most violent rain I've ever experienced, windshield wipers on full speed, and I was still completely blinded. And I got back to my home around 10 p.m. the next day. So drove 1,200 miles in the span of 36 hours, and I felt like an indie wrestler, because I guess that's what they do, going on the roads like crazy. And again, those stories are so fun to me because I look back and I'm like, man, I did those crazy drives for Omega versus Danielson and Omega versus Ospreay. Like, I was willing to go through that crazy odyssey to watch one match. And I don't regret it by even a single stretch of the means. And that just goes to show, like, that's how special wrestling is to us. Like, we will go to that length to watch one match live.
Yep, I was
even at
for Omega and Ospreay.
Even at 22 years old, which is what I was at the time for Omega and Ospreay, or 20 years old, which was what I was for Omega versus Danielson. And I would still do it today. That's how much I love the sport. So it's really cool that we now get to talk about it on a mic every week and hopefully share that passion with people listening and inspire others to care about wrestling to the level that myself and Tyler do.
100%. And guys, we're going to end it right there. This was Sooperplex Podcast Episode 2. Thank y'all for tuning in. My name is Sooplex. You can follow me on all social medias under the name Sooplex, Sooplex. Some platforms it's 2 X's, some platforms it's 1. Just type in Sooplex and 1X. You'll see it pop up. Liam, where can he find you, sir?
All socials at Liam T. Crowley, most prominently on Instagram, but I also am on Twitter and TikTok as well. And like I said, there will always be new wrestling interview content going up on those platforms. So if you like seeing people talk to the people that you watch wrestle on TV.
Well, if you're a wrestler watching us, we don't mind either. But hey, guys, this has been Liam. This has been Sooplex. This has been Sooperplex. We're tuning out. Have a good night. Be safe. See ya. Bye.